Hello art beaters, Becky here with a new video and I hope you enjoy. If you want to keep up to date on all things art beads, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel right now. Enjoy!
So this is Quick Start Peyote, and basically these are cards that you use. You fold them and you stitch your first few rows, and this card holds the beads for you. This comes with really good instruction. It comes with different bead sizes. This is for this is an assortment size, so it's good for 15-aught, 11-aught, 8-aught, and 6-aught beads. And you get, I think it's 2 of each size in these cards. And the cards are a really nice, sturdy, laminated material, so they hold up really well. You can use them over and over again. Eventually they'll wear down,
Right.
and you're going to move on to new cards, but they really do hold up well.
You can use it more than once. That's great.
Exactly. And so let me show you in here, really great instructions. Shows you how to get started with the card and where to put the thread, but I'm going to show you that too. Works you through even count and then odd count peyote, just like Cynthia did, and then shows you how you can put 2 cards together to make one bigger card if you want to make something longer than what that section allows in one card. So really great. This is the 3-pack of the 8-aught, and then we have the 3-pack of the 11-aught and the 15-aught, and then the multi-pack. And so if you know what you work with all the time is 11-aught beads, then the 11-aught is going to be a great pack for you to start with, and that works for both delica or cylinder type beads and round seed beads. The only thing is that the assortment pack is the only one that has a size for the 8-aught round or seed bead. It doesn't come individually. So if that's a bead size that you work with a lot, then the multi-pack is the one that you're going to go with, and you get 2 cards of each size in that pack. So I'm going to show you why you might want to use the Quick Start Peyote and really how easy it is. Put my
I'm going to
glasses.
give you
Oh,
this
thank you.
easier.
Okay, put my glasses on so I can see. And I've got some things kind of started here. Oh, of course, without a needle. So, let's get, no, it's a 12. Oh, I pulled it out of my needle. There we go. Thank you, Becky. 2. I've got a stopper bead on. Cynthia uses the little bead stoppers, and they both are great for beading projects.
Yeah, the bead stopper that I use is the small size, and it works perfectly for seed beading.
Okay, so thread's ready. I've got my stopper bead on, and here's my quick start card. This is for the 8-aught seed bead, which has a little, more rounded than a delica style or a cylinder style bead. So you fold the card in half, and then that offers you these little notches, and this is where you're going to line up the beads. And so to get started, you're going to put the needle from the inside. I'm going in between the fold and out this hole, this little hole that's on the side. And I'm going to pull my stopper bead. So I don't know if you can see, but my little stopper bead is now in between the fold there. Quick Start Peyote. So I'm going to show you how to get started. This is what the little card looks like when it comes out of the package. This one happens to be for the size 8 seed bead. And what you do is fold it. And it folds really easily, pretty much where it needs to because of this perforation. But basically you want these edges to line up. So card is folded. Then I have a thread with my needle on it and a stopper bead. I've got just a little bead as a stopper, but you can use the other types of stopper beads too if you prefer. And what you're going to do is you're going to go inside the fold and come out this small hole near the edge of the card, and you're going to pull your stopper bead up into place. So it sits sandwiched right inside that fold. Then there's a tiny little hole right here, if you can see that. These are notches for the beads, but this is a separate little hole for the thread. You're going to go down through that hole and out the very first notch. Like that. So you've got your thread exiting out your first bead hole. So now I'm going to pick up a bead and I'm going to pull this thread down in front so I can control it. I don't want to get tangled up with my needle. And now I'm going to go back out, well actually into the same hole that my thread is coming out of, and then out the space next to it. And this is going to put my first bead in place in the notch. So it holds it so nicely. And then second bead you're going to pick up. Thread is coming out of the second hole. I'm going to go back in the hole and then out the next one. And then you're just going to continue. I'm going to do an even count with this. And then I can show you the transition that you make at the end, because it's a little different than if you're doing it the freehand way. Get a couple more beads on here. And so you might wonder, well, how do I know if I'm at an odd number or an even number? I mean, I've got 4 beads here. That looks even.
Right. I would think so.
But you're also counting the spaces, because those would be beads too, or will be as you get further. So you can count, if you're not sure, from this first bead, and then counting beads and spaces. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the 7th bead, which means this space is going to be number 8, which is even. So I'm going to flip my card over, and I'm going to pick up the next, let's do a different, I'll pick a different type so we can see it change. How about shiny? And now I want my bead to be stacking on this little space here, and so I'm just going through that first bead. And I like to pull it down. There we go. So you can see this is very much like what Cynthia had originally. We've just stacked that first bead. She had hers stacked on top of the bead. I have mine stacked on top of this little space here.
Okay.
And then you just continue catching the beads to get your second row in. When you do it the freehand way, you're building that first, you thread all those beads on first.
Right.
Oops. And in this case, you're threading every other bead to get those beads in, but otherwise stitching it exactly the same. And then when you get to the end, the transition is identical to doing it like you did with the even count. So I'll stop with that there. And then what you want to do, I have one here where I've done 4 rows. So you can see how it built up. I've got green, and then the row of silver, and then the green, and then the matte silver. And so at about 3 to 4 rows is when you can remove it from the card. And it's super easy. I mean, you could leave the card on there and do the whole bracelet if you wanted to. It's not going to hurt anything unless it's in your way. But you just open up the card to the back side, And what you want to do is remove your stopper bead. And I always put 2 threads on just because I like it secure. So I'm going to just take those threads out. So now my stopper bead is off. And you can see this thread running through these beads. That's what's keeping it on the card. And so you just simply want to remove it. So you can just go back a few beads and pull your thread out. And then it just falls right off the card.
That's amazing.
And there's your work. So here's your tail end.
That's the second
And
time you're
here's-
showing that to me, and I'm still surprised and amazed how easy it is.
How easy that is,
Yes.
right? And now here's this would be your needle end, and then you're just ready to add the next row.
Okay.
So that's that. But I want to show you what you do for the odd count
Right.
on this very first row, because it's a little bit different than the even count. So I have my beads. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is bead 7. I don't want to put an 8th bead here because I want an odd number, but my thread is still coming out of this hole over here. So flip the card over, and this is all you do is just ignore that space, oops, and pull your thread through that first bead. So you can see the thread is right here on the outside of this notch,
Okay.
and then through that first bead, and then you're going to stitch just like you would normally.
So what's gonna happen to that thread that's showing?
So when you pull the work off the stopper thread and off this will be your end. This is just
Okay,
simply
okay.
the end of
I
your
see.
thread.
Okay.
So it doesn't get left there.
Right.
And then you just stitch as you would,
Mhm.
and do that same when you get to your odd end. You have to do your little fancy stitching
Right.
to do your odd count peyote, but that's the only difference there. So really easy.
Yes.
And then I wanted to show you, this is just a really good reason for getting
Oh my gosh,
this
yes.
quick start peyote. These are 15-aught little red seed beads. You can see how tiny they are, and when they're that little and you're starting those first couple rows, it can be so difficult to handle. And so I love the quick start for getting started with really fine beads. Even the
Yes.
11s, I really do like that. I learned the way you do it. In fact,
Right.
you taught me, and that's how I do it the old-fashioned way. But when I was starting, I wished I'd had this, so especially for fine.
Right.
And I want to show you another something. So this is another good reason to use the quick start peyote. I don't know if you can see through this tape very well, but what I have on my thread is basically this pattern. I've got my stopper bead. This is done the way Cynthia would do it, and I've added this row and then come back and added these beads. So you've got that T like
Right.
you created, and then your single bead down here. And that's great, but when you're holding that in your hands, it's really easy for these to twist around. And now you've got to add your second row or your next row of beads on there. And if your bead has twisted so that now, let's say this is green and this is brown, but the thread twisted right here, now your brown is down here and your green is up here and you don't notice it,
Right.
and then you go to stitch, then your pattern is off. And even if you have noticed it, it's just cumbersome
It
to
is.
get that all straightened out. So this is another good reason for starting with the quick start peyote, to do anything that's patterned, especially on that starting edge. There's one little thing though that I want to point out. We both stitch the old-fashioned way, and we create our patterns going up, and we show a stopper bead off on this side, and we start with this up bead, and then you add these beads, and then you add that second bead to make that T,
Right.
and then you add these beads. But with quick start peyote, and I can show you on this card, you are starting, so if you're looking at this pattern, you're actually starting with this bead over here, which is this bead, and that's a down bead. And so that's fine. You can continue working that way and do, you know, create whatever you want that way. But what if you're trying to follow a pattern, for example, one of ours, where we've shown you the thread path. Let's say we do something fancy and tricky up here with our thread, and you want to follow our thread path, but now you're finding that you're going in exactly the opposite direction. What you can do is just get your start. So you've started like you would with a quick start peyote, and you've got 3 or 4 rows on. Then just simply pick this thread up and move that thread, weave it through your beads so that it's coming out over here. So then you're starting like you would if you had started the other way.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
pretty easy to correct
very
that.
easy to correct it. You can even move your stopper bead. I like to know where my stopper bead is. I use that as a guide so I know which side I'm on, especially if you're doing odd count. And if you're used to having that stopper bead to one side, you can even move your tail end over to the other side if you want that as a marker. So yeah, lots of it's still very easy and helpful to use that to get started. And then one more thing about this is, what if you want to make something that's wider than what this card offers? You can join cards together. And so I've drawn on here, what you want to do is you want to cut this piece off. So I've drawn a little arrow to show that we're at this very first notch, which is where your normal first bead would go. And then you're going to draw a line down, and you're just going to snip that like this and just cut that strip off so it looks like that. So now that first notch is just almost gone, right? You cut right up to that edge. And then you're going to do it to sort of a mirrored image of a second one. And then you just put one card over the other and slide them together until you've got, you know, the same size little notch in there. And then tape those together, front and back. And now you can do something this big if you want to.
Yeah.
You can do more cards.
Great.
You can even get longer. So still really versatile.
That is really great. It is a quick start, that's for sure.
It is.